Hey, greetings. Happy Monday, everyone. It's Naomi Wolf, and I'm here with the wonderful Dr. Alejandro Diaz of the Wellness Company. Welcome, Dr. Diaz.
Thank you for having me on your show, Naomi. Thank you so much.
Of course. Well, we've spoken once, and it was a completely eye-opening conversation. And in that interview, we had one of the only eyewitness accounts I've ever heard or seen of a doctor in the kind of global migration and pandemics, infectious diseases world who actually witnessed the stream of people crossing into our borders and dealt firsthand with the many illnesses and diseases from which they suffered, and also the public health risks of that level of just humanity being exposed, out in the elements and so on. It was a completely eye-opening conversation. And there's no one more qualified to talk about these issues. Dr. Alejandro Diaz is a pediatric allergist immunologist and has been in private practice for 17 years. He's renowned for his expertise. He's spoken on issues of medicine, migration, biosecurity, and related topics in over 27 countries. Most notably, the White House, the US Capitol, the United Nations Esplanade in Geneva, the Mexican Senate, and the European, Romanian, and Japanese parliaments, among others. Dr. Diaz is a sought-after expert, frequently appearing to provide insights on radio and television networks. In addition to his media presence, he serves as an advisor to multinational medical service companies. He was granted authorization as a panel physician, that's what I was referring to, by the governments of the United States and Australia to conduct the world's largest practice of migratory medical screenings. He was also among the first physicians to publicly voice concerns about the COVID-19 vaccines. He predicted the forthcoming pandemic in October 2018, approximately 1 year before the first case of SARS-CoV-2 in Wuhan. Wow, what a bio. And people are joining us from all over the world. Well, let's start with a little bit with that. I just remind everyone or update the newcomers about what led you to predict an outbreak like SARS-CoV-2 2 years before it was officially recognized.
That was during the gathering of the caravans in Honduras on the third week of October 2018, and I was interviewed by an important broadcaster, anchor person in Mexico, mm-hmm. about my experience as a panel physician, immigration doctor, and what I was thinking about those caravans in Honduras. And I told him, my position about the, immigration medicine and what I think about that and so on and so forth. But I told him what it really worries me is that I can, looking at the global sphere and the geopolitical movement everywhere in the world, Europe, United States, Canada, Central and South America, what was happening in Asia and Africa. I said, my fear is that we are on a pre-phase of a pandemic. Mm. And I didn't know that it was going to be a virus or anything, but just those gathering of massive amounts of people that they were getting together to try to walk up all the northern triangle to cross the Mexican border and then all over Mexico to come to the United States. And we're talking about roughly in the numbers of 15 million people did that from 2018 to 2024.
Huge numbers.
And I said, the only thing that I'm looking at, it's chaos. And the only way you can control people is through health. And hence, this is why I said, potentially there's a pandemic coming. Because we were on the 100 years of the last pandemic, which was 1918 of the Spanish flu.
Right.
And as you can see, they're every 100 years.
Are they? Why? Why is that?
I don't know. It's like a cycle. But if you look in the history, like every 100 years, we have a pandemic.
Isn't the word pandemic of fairly recent usage? I don't recall in my reading in contemporary journals and memoirs of the 1918 flu epidemic that they used the word pandemic.
No, it's been used for quite a bit, and basically, pandemic is just when the number of infections, it has to be an infectious disease.
Mhm.
The number of infections, a lot of people within a lot of countries in more than two continents.
Mm,
Roughly, that
mm,
is the definition. But also, what we are seeing now, which is very interesting for everybody to understand this, is that we are living on a syndemic.
what's
And
that?
syndemic, it's pandemics within a pandemic. So many pandemics, like
Oh.
social problems, economic problems, migration problems,
Mm,
infection, health issues, and so on. So we are living right now, and spiritual, if we think about it. So we're
mhm.
living on a syndemic
Did
right
you
now.
coin that phrase? I've never heard that before.
No, no, but
That's
I didn't, but I really think it's what we're living right now, a syndemic.
wow. I hear you. Like, just to push back gently a little bit, just because I'm not a medical doctor. I'm an English major, poetry,
Mhm.
DPhil. Um, I worry a little bit about the evolution of language, right? Because uh, honestly, as bad as the 1918 flu epidemic was, um, it didn't rival, the Black Death. It didn't rival waves of typhus and cholera in Britain and Western Europe in terms of lethality. Even the kinds of diseases that Florence Nightingale went to address during the Crimean War. I mean, it was bad, but there have been. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you read 400 years of literature, also, Latin American literature, because human beings are the same around the world. It records the fact that humans live alongside pathogens. That's our
Wait,
circumstance, and that it's pretty normal for there to be infections, waves of infection, waves of disease. It's not aberrant in history. I'm not saying it's good, but I guess I'm just a little bit worried about the kind of escalation of language of fear and anomaly around what is a very normal. Like, it is not normal for humans to have no disease waves, right? It's normal for humans to have disease waves. So do you think, and again, I'm just playing devil's advocate, do you think there's a danger that we've just kind of internalized, and certainly public health, I see this happening, internalized language of pandemic, or syndemic, or multiple pandemics all at once, of social problems, right? Or economic problems, physical problems, public health problems, that we're kind of at risk of, I almost want to say, making too much of them, or living in a fear state about conditions that are pretty much part of human existence.
that's a very interesting question, Naomi. And one of the things that I saw during this, I never call it, as I've told you, I never call it pandemic. I
Mhm.
call it the COVID operation,
Hmm.
because it was an operation. I
Wow.
know that, and we understand that. So it
Mhm.
was man-made, but the fear factor, the fear agenda, what I call the agenda of evil, was permanent, and it was there. And this is what basically driven everybody to go and get the injections. I never call them vaccines, as you know. I
Right.
call them toxic injectable products of experimentation. And it was through the agenda of fear, through this mass formation.
Mhm.
Everybody's going to get sick, everybody's going to die, you better get the shots and things like that, through
Mhm.
social media, television, radio, everywhere. It was propaganda everywhere.
Right.
You really needed to have a lot of courage and a huge standard of understanding
Mhm.
what was happening in order to resist.
Yeah.
Can you imagine me as a immunologist,
Mm.
practicing immunologist, and pediatrician as well,
Mhm.
resisting all the media, all the social pressure,
Mhm.
the parents, the people, my friends, my colleagues?
Mm.
Naomi, my colleagues, they call me all the time saying, "What are you doing?
Mm.
What are you thinking?"
Wow. That took
Everybody
a lot of
was
courage. Yeah.
everybody was pushing the injectable products. Everybody was masking and social distancing and lockdowns and things like that. That
Mm.
it was just part of an experiment of obedience.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. But at the same time, and I'm not trying to be argumentative at all. At the same time, uh, your posture seems reasonable and educated and commonsensical to me. And it's all your colleagues in the public health space badgering you who seem to have forgotten everything we know about public health, right? Because I don't think there's ever been a vaccine that prevents transmission, right? Like it maybe a vaccine keeps you from getting sick, but it doesn't prevent transmission. So there was that, whereas all the measures and countermeasures were about preventing transmission. You had to get vaccinated so you wouldn't kill grandma, which doesn't make any sense at all. Grandma's going to get infected elsewhere if her immunity is low, if we're talking about normal, pathogens. And I guess the other thing that baffles me is that all of your colleagues knew that it takes 14 years to develop a safe vaccine. So why were they yelling at you? Why weren't they embarrassed for themselves and having common sense conversations? Wait, we've never had a safe vaccine enter the market in 12 months.
It's called, and it's an extraordinary point that you're bringing up. It's called indoctrination. We've been indoctrinated since day one of medical school, everywhere in the world. You want to wear a white coat is what I call the medical religion.
Right.
You want to wear a white coat? You want to be a doctor? You want to be this superstar? Right. Well, you have to do this, 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 and this. This is the ABC. You want to follow? You'll be a doctor. You'll be a good boy.
Wow.
Unfortunately, Naomi, that's exactly what happened. We have been indoctrinated, and I have been resistance of that indoctrination since day one. Kind of a rebel guy, and but I am an allopathic doctor. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I chose after many
Western
medicine. A lot of training and what we call conventional medicine. The regular doctor that you go to see to the office. To the hospital,
right?
But then I did pediatric, and but I did allergy. I'm an allergist.
Wow.
An allergist is the closest thing from the allopathic standpoint to be an homeopathic or holistic doctor. Why? Because let's think that somebody is allergic to grass. We give them grass, to decrease sensitivity and increased tolerance on a very tiny dose. And that's why one of the main reasons that I chose to become an allergist, because it's more natural way of practicing medicine. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, on the allopathic spectrum of medicine, it's about only three things. Either you get a prescription, you go to the emergency room, or you go to surgery. That's it.
That's so sad. That's so sad. That's so barbaric.
Yes, Naomi. Unfortunately, if we see the whole sphere factor, the shortage of doctors in the United States, it's incredible. I'm going to give you shocking numbers. It's estimated that in 2036, which is probably 11 years from now, the shortage of doctors will be 86,000 doctors in the United States.
Whoa.
Where do you think we can get those doctors? Where? What's going to happen in the next? We are on the shortage right now, but in 11 years, there's going to be a shortage of 86,000 doctors in the United States. Can you imagine that? The average time, Naomi, to see a doctor right now as we speak, it's roughly 26 days. From the moment you go to see your primary doctor until you go to see your specialized doctor, average 26 days. The waiting time on a regular office, 4 hours to see a doctor. And then when you go and get into the office, probably, if you're lucky, the doctor will be with you 4 minutes. If you're lucky, because probably you will be seen by the physician assistants or the nurse practitioner. but
Wow.
the patient, they really want to go and see their doctor.
Right.
So there are so many moving parts right now happening at the same time.
That's completely shocking. Dr. Diaz, why is there a shortage? Is it because, healthcare professionals were mandated with a vaccine that has disabled many of them, or they quit so they didn't have to take it? Or is it that other potential doctors or medical students see through allopathic medicine and how corrupt it's become? What caused this extraordinary shortage in a field that is very high, in many ways, highly respected and highly compensated?
All of the above, Naomi, all of the above, and very few positions for residency,
Mhm.
very few slots for that. It seems that young people, they're not getting into medical school as we used to back in our days. I
Huh.
was trained in the 80s,
Mhm.
and the aging of the population. So there are so many factors coming together and bringing an additional burden
Mhm.
to what's happening at the healthcare systems. This is why I am very enthusiastic about the MAHA movement with
Right.
Secretary Kennedy.
Mhm.
I really think that with the superstars that he's bringing on,
Mhm.
most of them, they will bring something good for the betterment of society. Because if we think about it, Naomi, we never thought about health
Mm.
as much as we do right now until the COVID hour.
Right.
Everybody's thinking about health. Everybody's thinking about getting in shape,
Right.
lose weight,
Right.
taking supplements and things along that line. They want to be better and they want to live longer.
Right. Well, I see what you mean, and thank God. But I'm still stunned that there are going to be 86,000 missing doctors in 11 years. That's very dangerous. And
Yes.
I have to say, I feel like it's part strategic. A country can't be strong if there are not enough doctors.
Naomi, can I tell you something about that real quick?
Yes, what's that?
Okay, the state of Tennessee, the state of Florida, and now on a
Mhm.
new bill, the
Mhm.
state of Texas, they are not already already Tennessee and Florida. They have this bill that they will accept overseas doctors,
Right.
that they have to meet certain certifications and credentials. They have to be in good standing. They have to be in an accredited residency program. They have to be, accredited working for 5 years in their country,
Mhm.
speak English, be ECFMG certified, and so on and so forth. And then they can come to those states,
Mhm.
practice for a couple of years with the supervision of a doctor, of a licensed doctor,
Mhm.
and then they can have their license. This is how desperate the system
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am worried, Dr. Diaz, because this shortage of human doctors is coming at just the moment in history that AI is being rolled out as, the most exciting thing in medicine as well as in other fields. And I am very scared about AI in medicine because I don't know if I shared this with you, but I almost died 2 years ago in a hospital. I had a sepsis after an appendectomy and
Wow.
dying, like literally dying, like near death experience. Saw my departed dad, was ready to go. I hadn't been given food or water for almost 6 days. The surgery to deal with my sepsis kept getting pushed back and pushed back. And I saw that the whole hospital was being run on AI already, that basically I never saw a doctor. It was all these, nurses that had been brought in with less training, from other countries. No disrespect to immigrants. I'm the daughter of immigrants, granddaughter of immigrants, but it was like,
Immigrant as well.
sorry?
I'm an immigrant as well.
We are, right? But this was people who didn't have backup, I guess I would say. A lot of backup. They couldn't like go to uh, you know deep networks in the community that would back them up if there was a conflict between them and the university and the hospital. But my point is, every single one of them did one little thing that was dictated by a program, right? and they wouldn't take a step without looking at the monitor and looking at a program that literally spoke to them in devices on their uniforms. And I just realized as my life was ebbing away that it would be so easy to code me as a dissident and just push my what is it called, procedure long enough to let me just die, and there would be no murder, right? No fingerprints, no, the AI would have done it. It wouldn't have been anything traceable, right? And they could do that with any dissident, or a rival hospital person, or whatever. You can set AI to do whatever you want, is the bottom line. So I am very scared of this shortage of doctors, and I think it comes at a suspicious time. Well, that's just me being A, paranoid, but B, aware
And
of.
Naomi, adding a little bit to that, and thank you so much for sharing that with me. I feel so sorry for what happened with you.
Well, I survived.
I'm very thankful that you're alive and you look great.
Thank you.
The fact of the matter of AI and telehealth at that point with AI, AI has access to all medical books have written in the history, all medical articles and journals and everything, and it can diagnose somebody like this. You just put your signs and symptoms. So guess what's going to happen potentially with real doctors, with human doctors, only for that. Adding to that there are robots that they can operate with no risk and no very short, they don't miss.
Right.
And that's going to be ready within the next 2 to 3 years. So what's going to happen to medicine?
Wow. No, you're absolutely right. But, I can tell you as a tech CEO that given that AI is ingesting all, opinion, it's ingesting bad opinions and outdated opinions and disproportionately conventional wisdom, as opposed to innovative challengers to received opinions. So it's going to reproduce all the mistakes of conventional wisdom at the expense of a real doctor in the old-fashioned sense, who really would look at a patient that he or she knows and notice, dark circles under the eyes or pallor or things that a machine can't be programmed to pick up. Well, let's go now in our last 7 minutes to something very specific that's in the news. And I also want to know about TWC's telehealth plans, because you can still get a human being on TWC's telehealth, right? It's not,
of course, all the time. All the time.
I love that. So let's go to parasites, which is one of the subjects of our conversation. We talked a little bit about parasites in our last conversation. I know TWC, our sponsor for this episode, thank you. TWC has a new parasite product. I'm actually under the care of Dr. Hadar of TWC, and she prescribed a parasite cleanse for me. I did it a couple of months ago, and it was very intense, and I think it was very helpful, but it definitely worked because I felt a lot of, it's very intense, right? It's hard to describe. I don't know if we've spoken about this, but it's emotionally intense in addition to everything else. But I want to know what your latest thinking is about parasites, and also about the buzz online linking parasites to cancer. Is there anything to that?
Well, first of all, Naomi, I would like to talk about epidemiology. So there are millions of infectious of parasites in the United States, millions of new diagnosed cases each year, from Chagas disease to cysticercosis to Giardia, toxoplasmosis, and it's a broad spectrum of different parasites. So there are more common than what we think.
Even in a developed country like ours.
Oh yeah, every year millions of diagnoses of parasites, of different parasites in the United States. Yeah. And so the wellness company, they compounded a very interesting combination of products, which is ivermectin, and mebendazole. 25 milligrams of ivermectin and 250 milligrams of mebendazole. And since the COVID operation, specifically ivermectin, got a lot of attention. This is what we call a miracle drug. It was discovered roughly 1975, that Dr. Satoshi Omura in Japan, and in conjunction with Dr. William Campbell from Ireland. And it was at the beginning, it was for veterinary use. And then in, I believe, 1997, it was FDA approved for parasite treatment. But then we started to see that the mechanism of action of ivermectin specifically, it has what we call off-label uses. In this case, cancer. We have seen, and in many countries, in many studies, that it definitely can help on the treatment of cancer because of different mechanisms of actions. So the cancer cells, they need specific nutrients and specific factors to grow, and they grow rapidly, and they need a lot of energy. They need what we call ATP. So they need a lot of mitochondria. The mitochondria is one of the organelles that creates that ATP to the Krebs cycle. It's a very complex cycle, but it creates ATP. So it needs a lot of energy, and it seems that ivermectin block the production of ATP for cancer cells.
Wow.
Also, the division of cells, that they have to be dividing quickly and rapidly because they have a specific function. And it can disrupt on the microtubule level the disruption of the cell cycle. On the other side of the token, cancer cells, most likely they need they get their nutrients by creating new vessels to get the oxygen and the hemoglobin and the nutrients and everything. And it blocks what we call angiogenesis. And so then key patterns, like specific key patterns that cancer cells need to grow, and it seems that it blocks. The same with mebendazole.
Wow. So it's not that parasites cause cancer, it's that the treatment for parasites, ivermectin and mebendazole, show efficacy in treating cancer. And that's the connection in your view that at least anecdotally that you're seeing.
Yeah, there are some studies, there are some reviews, there are some anecdotal as well thoughts that this is hard to say, it's hard to understand even, that cancer, the etiology, what is like the genesis of cancer, is from parasites. But that's not very well understood yet. But what we know now is that this type of medications, they can inhibit those rapid growth of cancer cells.
Amazing.
At a high level. And there are many doctors throughout the world that they have been witnessing on their patients that giving these medications, their cancer patients, even with pancreatic cancer, lung cancer, all these turbo cancers that we are seeing after the rollout of the injectable products, the so-called vaccines. And we're starting to see a huge, amount of patients with brain cancer, lung cancer, colon cancer, breast cancers, and so on, and lymphomas, and even patients with pancreatic cancer, they're getting better. I'm not saying I'm not going to use the word cure, but many doctors are claiming that. Many physicians. I've been reading about them. Some of them, I know them very well, and they're great doctors in different countries.
So credible doctors that are having good results. And so this is the kind of thing that with RFK Jr. as head of HHS and our beloved friend, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya running NIH, we might even see studies that are real studies that will either confirm or not confirm the promising anecdotal results that you're describing. So can people who are listening to this who have cancer, who have loved ones with cancer, get these products from TWC right now, or how would they get them? Because I can tell you that many of their doctors will not prescribe these products for them if they have cancer.
Well, I'm not allowed to give like a medical advice on
Mhm.
that specific topic because that's a very, very dangerous waters
Right.
when you speak specifically to that. But
Okay.
what I can say is that there are a lot of studies and
Uh-huh.
a lot of doctors that they are treating cancer patients with large tumors and complicated cancers with
Right.
ivermectin and bendazole,
Okay.
and they're getting better and better and better. Obviously, we cannot claim
Right.
that it's for cancer use, but
Right.
it's for parasite cleansing.
I see. Oh my God. It's like practicing medicine in the Soviet Union. I get what you're saying. I've read between the lines. I hope everyone understands that Dr. Diaz is not prescribing or claiming that they have found a cure for cancer. That said, it's a very interesting report of anecdotal evidence from credible doctors getting results according to those doctors.
But
Or
let me tell you something, Naomi, real
yes.
quick. Ivermectin, even though it was discovered in 1975,
Mhm.
approved for human use in 1997, FDA approved, but it won the Nobel Prize on
I
medicine
know
in
that. I did know that.
2015. So
Uh-huh.
that means something.
It
It
does.
means something.
Absolutely. Sadly, Dr. Diaz, we've run out of time, but it's so wonderful to talk to you, and I can't wait to talk to you next time. Where do people find you, and where do they go to follow you? Do you have a website, a social media presence, or should they just find your bio on twc.health, where I see you right here?
Yeah, definitely. They can find me on TWC, the wellness company. That I
Mhm.
am very honored to be part of this amazing group of people that they are changing lives and changing the way to perceive health. And also on my X account at Alejandro Diaz MD, and you will find me there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diaz, and everyone. Do remember that when you support Daily Clout on twc.health/Daily Clout or promo code Daily Clout, you're supporting shows like this that bring you unvarnished truth and health freedom and other dissidents who have stood up to tell you the truth and who are not beholden to special interests. Thank you, Dr. Diaz. As always, we look forward to seeing you next time.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you.